I cannot explain how excited I am for this book, how excited I've been to get it, to read it, to explore it. It's been something I have been waiting on, and let me tell you, it did not disappoint. So, just in case you are not aware, this is The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. It is the fourth book in the second era of the Mistborn world. So technically it's like book number 7 of the Mistborn series, if you want to look at it that way. And while the original trilogy of Mistborn is set more in your stereotypical fantasy type world, you know, swords and sandals type scenario, the second era, starting with Alloy of Law and finishing with The Lost Metal, is set more in the Western setting. So there's, you know, 6-shooters and shotguns and things like that, along with all the fun magic systems that Brandon Sanderson is known for. And I know a lot of people that loved the first original trilogy of Mistborn are not the biggest fans of the second era. And I kind of get why. It's a totally different, you know, setting involved with it. You know, a lot of people don't want guns in their fantasy books. I think they're missing out. And especially with this one, I can't say enough good things about it. Some of the most common criticisms I've heard for the second era of Mistborn is that the characters don't feel as well developed. And that's something that Brandon Sanderson's really known for, is having very, very well developed characters. It's, you know, one of the hallmarks of his writing style. And honestly, especially in Alloy Law, that kind of holds up. They're not as well developed. They're not as deep, and, you know, they feel a little more cardboard cutout-ish than his other books. That's not to say they feel, you know, cardboard cutout to me. They're just more so than, you know, what you would get in like the Stormlight Archive or something like that. And Brandon Sanderson, in the convention they just wrapped up on, talked about this a little bit, where when he wrote Wax and Wayne, the first book, Alloy of Law, it was meant to be about, you know, a side project, something fun that he could do that wouldn't be as taxing on his ability as some of the other bigger major projects he was working on. He just wanted to write something fun and enjoyable. Wax and Wayne, the whole thing has been very fun and enjoyable, but in this, The Lost Metal, he has really, really stepped it up to where he is taking this so much more seriously. The characters get so much more depth, and their relationships to each other is just more fleshed out, which is something to be said for a book no bigger than this. I mean, for Brandon Sanderson, this is like novella size almost. Because while doing that and spending so much time and effort and energy on getting these characters to feel more real and deeper and working on their relationships and connections and all that, all the fun and antics of Wax and Wayne are still there in full force. I mean, Wayne is one of my favorite characters in the whole Cosmere. He is just, love the guy. And I don't know what it, you know, says about me as a person that his humor really lands with me, but it does. I'll own that. It's okay. Now, as far as the plot structure and setup of this book, the way I would describe it if I was pitching it to a publisher or something is Sherlock Holmes meets 24 plus a little fantasy and MC-Eunice, if that makes any sense. Yeah, so if you've seen the show 24, you know the setup of this book. It is fast paced, it is deadline oriented, it is high stakes, it is tense. I had to take a break while reading it just to calm my nerves. It is an intense book. It's also got a ton of, you know, detective work, Sherlock Holmes type feel to it, which is a lot of fun, especially with Wax and Wayne. And they get a lot of other characters involved too, and they have a big role to play in this as well. And I talked about it being a tense book. So probably about halfway through that, things got really, really intense to the point where you expect it to go back down and then come up for a finale, and there was no down to it. It was all full steam ahead. It was tense from that point on, and it just kept going, relentless. And boy, it wears you down emotionally to be that tense, and then he hits you with emotional stuff in there too at the end of it, and it's a lot. It's a lot to go through. I read this very quickly, like over 2 days. I would not recommend that. It's a lot. But that's also why I read Brandon Sanderson a lot, is because he can pull all those emotional levers and give you all the feels in all the different ways, and it's wonderful. It's painful at times, but it's wonderful. He can make you cheer for people. He can make you cry for people. He can do it within 3 pages of each other. It's fantastic. And another thing that Brandon Sanderson said at the convention is when it comes to the Cosmere. So this is in the Mistborn world. He also has Stormlight, Warbreaker, Elantris. All those books are connected by the Cosmere. They all take place in the same universe. And he has said in the past that he has kept the connections and the crossovers kind of limited and in the background. And now he has said he is taking the gloves off. He is going full crossover, embracing the Cosmere as a thing. And it really, really shows in this book. This is the first book that I would say you're really missing out if you haven't read a lot of his other Cosmere works. I don't know how everybody feels about that, because if you've just read Mistborn and just read the first 3 and then the first 3 in this series and then pick up this book, I mean, that's a justifiable reading order, but you're going to be missing out on a lot in this book. Now, as a die-hard Cosmere fan, I love this. I love all the crossover in it. It is so much information. It is so much you can pour over and tie together. I'll be rereading this with a notepad. I may get me a board up with pictures and the red string, the whole 9 yards. But the crossover has officially started, and he's doing it with this book. Gloves are off, and we can expect a lot more Cosmere stuff in future books going forward, I think. And that is something I'm really excited about. Yeah, it's full of Cosmere stuff. So if you are a Cosmere nerd and you are deep in the lore and the history and all the going-ons in the Cosmere, this is your next read, period. This has a lot, and it is wonderful. And I will do a more in-depth video here very soon going over all the spoilery stuff in this book, because there's a lot of that I'm really nerding out on and I want to go in depth on. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about this book. It's wonderful, and it's out now. I got this one as a pre-order, the signed edition, so I got it a little early, but it should be out in stores. It's on Amazon, Audible, all of that. So go out, read it, let me know what you think down in the comments. I can't wait to talk more about this book. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you would, please subscribe to the channel. That helps me out a lot. And I will see you guys on the next one.